Welcome back to Tony's Cool Tools. If it's your first time, thanks for stopping. So 2 quick announcements. First, I really want to thank Brad from Thumb Sales for sending me some swag. Nice sweatshirt, second one as well. And lastly, a nice cooler or tumbler here. Chris from In the Woodyard and I had purchased galvanized trailers from him about a year and a half ago. And we really appreciate his thoughtfulness in sending this to us. And by the way, I never refuse swag or any apparel. I'm really tough on clothes. So the second announcement I want to make is we're only weeks away from the Hoosier Hysteria, and that is May 6th. And if you want additional information, check out Mike from K&L Firewood. That's K&L Firewood. And I'll have the link down in my info section below. We're definitely going to have a fun time, and there's going to be a number of your favorite channels participating in the event for the veterans. So today's video is going to be a quick one. I'm going to discuss a very important topic. I'm going to be discussing IFAKs or MYFAKs. That stands for Individual First Aid Kit or My First Aid Kit. If you happen to live in the metro area, you're only minutes away from an immediate care or from an ambulance. But if you're like me or many others that are watching, I'm sure, we live in the sticks. And it could be a half hour or more, 20 minutes to a half hour, before we could get an ambulance or immediate care. So we have to help ourselves. So our hobbies and business like firewood or splitting or sawing logs is not the safest around. It's actually dangerous. We utilize an axe or a sharp object like this, or more so than that, we use the chainsaw, which is extremely dangerous. A doctor friend of mine who worked in northern Wisconsin told me the 2 major reasons someone visited the ER in northern Wisconsin was 1, a fishing hook that was embedded or went through some part of their body. That was the number 1. Number 2, chainsaw accidents. So as you can see, we're dealing with dangerous tools out there. Now here's a sobering statistic. There's between 28 and 30,000 accidents with chainsaws every single year. And on average, it takes 110 stitches to close up a chainsaw cut. 110. Now of the 28 to 30,000, 40% of that are accidents that happen from the waist down, typically thighs and legs. The other 30 to 35% are between the neck and the waist, usually arm, wrist, and hands. Now it would be interesting to find out how the UK or the Scandinavian countries that in some cases have to have certification before you can use a chainsaw, how they are similar to the US. Because most of the people that I see on the European channels are wearing chaps and a heck of a lot of PPE. Now I understand it is a choice and not everyone wants to wear it, and I get it. So you folks in Europe and Scandinavia, drop me a line and let me know what your thoughts are on accidents that happen by you. Now with that being said, we want to make sure that we are ready in case we are in an accident or somebody we are with is in an accident, and we know what to do. I've had a couple close calls with chainsaws and axes. The first one was, I was wearing these chaps, and I finished the cut, and my chainsaw just slightly moved over to my right, and it nicked me in the thigh, the upper thigh here. Now, all the material came out, and fortunately, it locked up my chainsaw, stopped it dead, which I was happy it did. Hopefully you don't have to experience this, but I will tell you that the chaps I'm wearing did save me a trip to the emergency room. The second incident that I had was with an X27 Fiskar axe. I was splitting some wood and it bounced off the edge and hit me in the shin. Now fortunately I was wearing chaps when I was doing that, and I just cut the material. It did not go through the Kevlar, it just cut the material, but it saved me there as well from getting stitches. Now in my last video, the Fiskar axe video, I had a viewer comment that he loved the X27, however he was just recuperating from an accident. He too had hit a block of wood and it bounced off and hit his boot, cut into the boot and into his foot. Well, there were several stitches later. He's recuperating now, but he's okay. But like they say, accidents do happen, but many of them are preventable. Oh, and by the way, once you hit your chaps, they're junk. You shouldn't use them because that material is gone out of that. And if you happen to hit the same spot, it's just going to go right through and into your thigh. By no means am I a doctor, a nurse, or an EMT. I'm just going to show you some things that I do with these first aid kits. And maybe you can pick up some tips along the way to make your first aid kits better. I don't think anyone will argue the number one first aid tool that you have in your disposal is your cell phone. Hopefully you'll never have to use it, but if so, hopefully you're only minutes away or not far away from getting help. When I took first aid many years ago, the first thing we learned were the ABCs: airway, breathing, and circulation. Now the acronym has changed to MARCH, M-A-R-C-H, and that's massive hemorrhaging, airway, respiration, circulation, hypothermia, and head trauma. Though I know something about the basics, I'm not qualified to talk about this. So I'll let you look on YouTube, or you could go to some of the classes that offer the 6 categories that I just mentioned. My main purpose for today is just to show you what I carry in the field in my IFAK or MyFAK, and no, I'm not swearing at you. That stands for Individual First Aid Kit or My First Aid Kit. Now, women say size doesn't matter, but in a first aid kit, it does. And also take into consideration your first aid skills and what you'll need for your specific kits. We're all different and our needs are all different. Now, don't be duped when you go looking for a first aid kit online and you take a look and they say 200, 250 pieces. Make sure you read the content. Probably 80% of those are going to be multiple different size bandages. You want something that's at least more comprehensive or that you could work with and expand. That's what I did with this. This kit happens to go into my pole barn. Now, even though the house is only 100 feet away, I want to make sure that I have a first aid kit there that could handle my needs in case I get cut there. And it's pretty comprehensive in the fact that you can see all the things that it has in it. I bought this kit and started enhancing it. Added a ton of other stuff than what it had in it. One of the things that I've added to this kit, because my daughter is so allergic to bee stings, we added an EpiPen to most of our first aid kits. One thing I wanted to point out too, once you buy this kit, it's not as though you don't have to go back and check it. There's a lot of stuff that has expiration dates on it, and the efficacy of the products that are in here lose their potencies. So you may want to check that every year or two. So this is the kit that I carry in my vehicle. Very simple. I only have a few things into it. It's actually 2-piece. This plastic waterproof case and this Ziploc bag. This one contains mostly alcohol strips, Band-Aids, and tape. There's additional Band-Aids in this one as well, but I also carry stuff, as I mentioned to you. All my kits contain the tick twister, a knife, some fire starting material, earplugs here, and one thing important for me is Benadryl. I carry this all the time. Sometimes I get allergies from food that I don't know I have, and this will stop it. The other thing, as I mentioned previously, is Fiskar owns the Gerber Knife Company, and even though you might think this is a Leatherman, this is a Gerber version of a multi-tool. And remember, take into consideration when you're building your kit your personal needs, such as your prescriptions or anything that you suffer from that's not standard that you may want to put in your kit. For me, I want to cover as many of these 4 areas as I can, and that's cuts, scrapes, burns, and bites. And each one of these kits addresses it differently. And in all the kits, one of the things I really like having is a set of pointy tweezers. And I'll give you my preference in the info section below. The thing I fear the most is cutting myself with the chainsaw, especially if I'm by myself and somewhere far away from any houses. And I am guilty of not carrying my kit with me. I'm trying to find a different case that I can strap onto the back of my chaps on the strap so I have it with me at all times. I'm going to show you what I carry in my chainsaw first aid kit. Now, in the event that I do cut myself, the first thing I have to do is assess the cut. Am I pumping out blood or just bleeding? If I'm just bleeding, I want to pack the wound and apply pressure. Let me show you how I do that. The first thing I have is some Quick Clot Combat Gauze. Say that 4 times. This particular gauze is impregnated with Quick Clot. It's a chemical that you put into the wound and it'll help stop the bleeding. They also make the Quick Clot in a powder, but it's not as popular. What they found is the powder, if it's a windy day and you're pouring it into the cut, it could blow away or it could blow into your eyes, and it's no fun getting this stuff in your eyes. So I would pack the wound, and after I packed the wound very tightly, I would use a compression bandage, or the other name is an Israeli bandage. And what this is a stretch wrap that has a big pillow in the front of it that absorbs the blood, and you can also wrap it tightly around there and it'll help stop the bleeding. And in an emergency, if you did not have a first aid kit, you could rip your t-shirt off, and if you have duct tape, you can pack the wound with your t-shirt and apply it with duct tape. That would work as well. But many times in a stressful situation, you're not thinking of other improvised methods of doing something. So let's say the worst scenario happened. You nicked an artery. You have about 90 seconds before you bleed out. That's where a tourniquet comes in handy. They make several different kinds. About 8 years ago, I thought this was the greatest thing next to sliced bread, and I carried this all the time. It was called a RAT, a Rapid Application Tourniquet. It's basically nothing more than a bungee cord. And after several years, they found out this is not as effective as they thought it would be. And as you can see, it's just a stretchy material. When you wrap it around, there are these cleats right here that you just pull them in, and they're supposed to hold it tight. But after using these, they found out they don't work as well. So I don't recommend it. I still carry it, because I carry multiple tourniquets out there. Like the old saying, 1 is none, 2 is 1, 3 is 2. So then I switched to something called the SOF, Special Operations Tourniquet. And this was very popular for several years. And it basically has a turnbuckle here. You tighten it up. It's almost like what you use in your car to tie a load down. And it has a windlass here that you keep twisting, and then you lock it in to either this one here or this one in the back, depending on where the windlass ends. But I keep this handy as well. Even though I've never used it, I want to make sure I have 2. But remember, though you put a tourniquet on, it may not stop the bleeding, and you may need a second tourniquet. So as they say, you can never have enough tourniquets. And my primary tourniquet that I would use is the CAT, the Combat Application Tourniquet. Super easy, one-hand application, and I'll show you that momentarily. The last tourniquet that I carry is called a SWAT. Now in an emergency, if I didn't have anything else, I would use this, but I'd probably use this more so with a compression bandage and then put this on top of it. Since 40% of the injuries are in the lower extremities, in the thigh and in the leg, I'm going to go ahead and put this on and show you how I would do it. Now this is not a tutorial, I'm just showing you how this could work. So the first part, you went ahead and you bought one of these. Now what? You have to know how to use it. That's the key. That's the critical part. So buying and having one of these in your first aid kit is fantastic, but do you know how to use it? That's the key. That's the most important part, is learning how to use this properly. Now, as you can see, I also put a Sharpie on here, and I have a little rubber band that I carry. That doesn't come with it. And I'll explain what these are for in just a minute. I'll put those away. So this has to be easily deployed. And there is a way of folding this, and they'll tell you how to do it in the instructions. But basically, once you're ready to use it, you just separate this, and this comes out. So you have a nice loop right in here, and this area right here, you open up and you can tighten it down to whatever. So let's assume I had an injury on my leg up here. I want to be able to put it on my leg, grab this red part right over here, tighten it up as tight as you can, and then let the Velcro do the rest. Once I get it over here, I use the windlass here, this little knob right here, and I turn. And I can turn once or twice, and let me tell you, it hurts. And you leave it on there. Now the next thing you do is you leave this, you come across with this, and there's a thing, it says time right here. That's where I use this. Now naturally you're gonna be in a stressful situation, but if you get to the hospital or whatever, they're gonna ask you how long has this been on, and if you say, well, I don't know, 20 minutes, half hour or whatever, it's not as super critical, but it is important. So if you should have this and you look at your watch and you say 3 o'clock, you write 3 o'clock on here. So God forbid you faint and somebody find you, they at least know how long the tourniquet has been on. And I will tell you, my leg is throbbing right now and hurting, which means it's installed properly. So the tighter that you can get it on, the better. And there's gonna be a lot of pain and discomfort. But if you see that the gushing stops, then you're lucky. The other thing is, if it's gushing out and you really don't know where to put it, the ideal positioning of your tourniquet is 3 to 4 inches above. And if you don't know where the cut ends or whatever, the rule of thumb is high and tight. So now I'm going to go ahead and remove this thing. Oh, and if you need to and you can't lift your leg up, you can just loosen this up, let this drop out, and go all the way around here and just feed it through. But once again, your motor skills are very minimal when you're in stress. So remember, the least you have to think about, the better it is. So the simplest way you can install this is the easiest. So now let me show you if I cut my hand how this would work. One-handed application. I would put this on, I can tighten it up, get it as tight as I can, get it over there, use my windlass here, give it a tight, put that over, mark my time on it. Now I'm throbbing right now. That's pretty tight. And I could go higher here too in the event of where the cut was. So I showed you a lot of stuff here in regards to the tourniquets. There are a lot of them on the market and you can make your own choice. I just gave you the ones that I like the best. And just remember, one of these can save your life or the life of your friend or family member. I wanted to show you the mother of all first aid kits. This is from a company called Doom and Bloom. The owner of the company is a doctor and his wife is a nurse, and they came up with this kit for people that are preppers or somebody who lives way off the beaten path and needs everything that's necessary for first aid. Let me show you. This kit comes in different compartments here, and it consists of everything that you can think of in a trauma type situation. It even deals with stitches that you can, a stapler or a needle and thread that you can do your own stitching, if you know how to do that, that is. But on this, all these compartments here have the bags, and each bag consists of something specific, whether it's for the airway, for cuts, for bleeding, whatever. Neck braces here. So this kit here is pretty comprehensive. And when I moved out in the country, I wanted to make sure that I was able to take care of my family and friends in case we had a big emergency and nobody could get to us, especially during a snowstorm or something like that. Today, I hope I've given you plenty of food for thought on building your own first aid kit or what one should look like. And as I mentioned, you can personalize everything to your own needs or to your family needs. I've thrown a lot of stuff at you, but I hope you found this video informative and you can take bits and pieces of it and make your own first aid kit. So remember, pass it forward, make the world a better place. And don't be a tool. Watch Tony's Cool Tools. Until I see you next time, have a great day.